we can fill in all those variables, almost like Mad Libs. You got these little blank spaces and we can put it in and say,
all right, gang. Hey, so thanks for checking back in here with the Green Team. For our next installment in this little series, we're going to call this one, How to Sell My House and Then Buy a New One. And I got the wonderfully assembled here. So let's do a quick little round off. What faces are staring back out at the poor public right now?
What's up? It's Jeremy, mortgage planner, co-founder, GHG, here to pop in on some finance stuff.
Awesome. I had to give the co-founder the second spot there. I couldn't trump you on that one. Craig Sutliff, real estate agent for many years and previous loan officer a long time ago here with the Greenhouse Group.
Just can't strip that off the title, huh? Can you?
You know, throw it in there.
Why don't you just go with like paper route guy back in the 80s too?
I had 2 paper routes for you.
Yeah, I bet.
Hey, it's Broker David, mortgage planner by day, here to contribute, you know, as always.
It will be the judge of that, Dave. And real estate consultant, co-founder, along with that guy, or right there, that guy that's sitting next to me on the screen there, Ding. So, hey, gang, let's get into this. So the truth is that in San Diego County anyway, and I don't suspect that this is going to change too much outside of, you know, when someone might actually peel this back and, you know, find this as a utility, we hope, for themselves. But inventory is just always tight, it seems, in San Diego County. It's a great thing to have in one regard, like, you know, it helps price indemnity, right? The price resistance of low inventory allows us as a real estate market to like almost always profess that your home is going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today with a long enough time horizon. So it's great when you go to, you know, trade that home in and liquefy the funds, right? And actually harvest whatever equity you had and then trade them into a new one. But, you know, but it's tricky because the new one thing, right? That's nuanced because, you know, as long as we have tight inventory over here, you might get a nice check for your house on the way out, but then it's tricky. It's like, well, then where do you go next? Right? So there's no real comfy pillow to that. And if it ever happens to do swing back around, there's another set of challenges. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time to kind of flesh that out here and kind of walk through that, right? So Jared, what would you say step one would always be no matter what the market pomp or circumstance or condition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's 2 things that might run almost in parallel, right? You start getting excited about your, the potential of buying that next home. And then you kind of wonder, hey, how does this order go? And I think obviously getting a feel, talking to your, you know, your real estate agent of what do I think is going to fit my goal for my next one? That gives you just a purchase price range, something to throw at the wall. And then the second thing is get a feel for how much your home might sell for. And then we're talking profit. As soon as you have that, before you go looking for homes, before you go do all that fun stuff, talk to your finance person and say, hey, I'm going to walk away with $150,000. Here's my job. What can I afford on that next level?
Yeah, fair enough. So, you know, I guess maybe at that point in time, if we're just, this conversation kind of just organically flowed into a chronological thing. So let's see if we can stay on that thread there. So if that's the case, over on the real estate side, I think this is where it gets difficult. So this might be a little bit of a filibuster here, unfortunately, because I got to unpack my one take I have for this whole thing. And it comes in earliest, right? On the real estate side. It's basically like, how do you manage what we refer to as the sell then buy continuum, right? So in order to kind of do that and unpack it, we got to start with what the options are. So if you do have to liquidate your home in order to afford the next one, you've got one option protected by the contracts where you lock both the sale and the purchase up in contingencies. I'm not getting into the rabbit hole of how that works, but basically you put your home on the market, but you only agree to sell it if you can find another home that you want to go to and that buyer accepts your offer and you get it. You basically say, okay, cool, I'll sell that to you now. And then you can only buy the next home if it's contingent on you selling the last one. So you can lock both of those transactions up in contingency. Obviously, the intended consequence is that you get full indemnity of not having to stick your neck out there and have damages if one of the two don't work. The problem is that the pool of buyers that are going to want to be excited about that are probably going to get slimmed down, right? And then the people that are still left around, they're probably going to want to give you a little less for that home than you could have otherwise got at market. And then you're probably going to have to pay more on the other side because no one wants to work with a home purchase from a buyer who's contingent on selling, right? And that kind of just makes sense organically. The other side of it is you just totally throw your hat over the ring and say, hey, I don't know where I'm going to next. I'm going to eventually buy, but I'm not going to lock my house up in contingency. So I'm just going to sell it. And then I'm going to be homeless. And then after I'm homeless, right, maybe you got a couch to surf on, or maybe you can live with the in-laws. Then I'm going to go buy so that I don't take less from my house to go sell and I don't pay more on the other end. Now, Craig and I, over the years, we've kind of developed this little hybrid deal. If we can work it out with the buyer to stay in the home, then you can sell it without having a contingency. Make sure you get top dollar, but then do a rent back. And that basically gives you 60 days effectively from the time you slap the table on your buyer until the time you have to move out at that point to be able to find the next one. If you can do that, what you're saving yourself is only having to move once. You'll sell for top dollar because you're not contingencing that. You'll still have to probably buy with a COP if you get the good luck of getting that in contract before you actually close escrow on your house. But then you only have to move once, and that's a great benefit. And I would say those are the three main stays of where you kind of find yourself in that sell then buy continuum. Now, couple of bonus rounds real quick. The fourth option is if you can move out first, okay? If you can move out first and say, hey, I don't want to deal with that whole headache of selling and the stress and people traipsing around my house and all that nonsense. I completely move out. I'm still paying that mortgage payment. I completely move out. You're probably signing up for a rental, right? Unless you got some cool in-laws you can go crash with or whatever. You're signing up for basically 2 payments at that point, right? If you can swing that, you will get top dollar for your house because you move your stuff out. We get to come in and stage it. You don't have the stress or the headache, and you can spend all your time working on trying to find the next one. That's actually a nice, comfy blanket. Not everybody gets the ability to do that financially, but if you can, it's the best way to try to manage these two things. And then the super duper califragilistic way is if you got it like that. So this is probably like Jeremy, you know, you're probably the richest guy I know.
Sure.
So if you super duper got it like that, then what you can do is you can just say, hey, I'm going to go buy the next house first because I don't even need to sell it, right? Like I don't need the money. Right? I'm just going to go straight up buy the next house first, all by myself, go buy, cool, awesome, no contingencies, no weird stuff. I completely move in, right? And then I go sell my house, right? And that is the most ideal way, of course, to make sure you're getting top dollar for the house you sell. You're getting normal market, or dare we say lowest possible denomination for the house you buy. And then that is the least stress in terms of the experience of managing the two. So, man, that is a lot of words and a bunch of breaths, but
okay, we're done here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. See you later.
Hey, Jess, I will take a second to talk about that last one since you mentioned the predominant nature of how much better that would be.
Yeah.
We, from a financing perspective, had put a little loophole into that. Dave and I have done this a couple of times. And oftentimes it's less, well, sometimes it's affordability, but if it's not affordability, one thing that we can do is get you financed with a very low down payment on that purchase and get you prepared to maybe rent your house out, the one that you're living in now, for, let's say, a year. What I can do is get you an FHA loan for your purchase, let's say. This is just an example. 3.5% down. You know you're not going to keep it because you got a bunch of loot coming when you sell your house, but you rent your house out for a year. The lender takes the rent to offset your payment of your current home, and then you buy the next home after a year or whenever that renter moves out, sell it. That's a good way of doing your little ladder trick too, where we can help on the financing. I got there's obviously some details in that, but that's a fun one too.
I think that's a great point, Jerry. I also think that that works. You know, we do run into buyers who already have the house in mind and they want to make a move on it now. And they've got to come up with a way to make that move as soon as possible. And the strategy you just outlined allows them to immediately move forward and, you know, benefit even throughout that first year of renting their house out. And eventually, you know, with inventory being tight, maybe that rental property is worth a little more a year later too. Good point.
Craig, what about the whole thing of like, so the guy that's going to sell, right? Gal's going to sell, and then they got to buy the next one. Like, I would love it. Can you flesh out that whole weird thing though, that we always have to deal with of like, when do you get excited about the next one? And how do you time that with the one you got? And like, it always seems to be like an awkward conversation. And I believe it to be unnecessarily awkward, right? So with a little bit of foresight and a little bit of planning and a little bit of formula sprinkled in there, it doesn't have to be, right? So I love the way you approach that. Can you flesh that out a little bit for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you're trying to, what we call thread the needle here, where you're able to do both simultaneously, list your house for sale and then go out and buy a new one and be able to not have to move twice or sleeping on somebody's couch. You know, the best way of doing that is really preparation and planning. You know, if you're trying to get out there in the market, you want to make sure that the sort of the bank that you got, where that down payment money is coming from, your house that you're going to be listing for sale, you really got to make sure that that thing is just dialed in and just ready to list on the market at the drop of a dime. You know, it's funny that, you know, if you start looking for a house before your house is ready to sell, the universe has just a really funny sense of humor that you will automatically, when you're least ready for it, find the perfect house that's going to land right on your lap. And you're going to just lose your mind. You're going to go, oh, I got to have this one. And then you kind of look back to your house. You're like, oh, wait a second. I am so not ready to sell. And then it's just this mad rush where you're trying to get some things done, try to declutter and do some repairs and improvements and stuff like that, while we're trying to negotiate with a listing agent to buy the house. And he's like, well, is it listed on the market yet? And then we have to admit, like, no, it's not listed yet. It's not really ready yet. So that's the most difficult thing to do is try and get a listing agent that's representing a seller. They're typically wanting to get their money fairly quick, usually a 30-day escrow or even shorter. And man, if your house is not ready to just drop and press the button and list it, don't even start looking for another house. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, there's no question. And that's across the board, right? You know, if top dollar is important to you, which we hope is universally true across, true for any seller, getting your home ready for sale first before you get excited about what's going to happen next is always where the wisdom lives. Now, I guess the nuance there, which I'm going to maybe challenge you to kind of speak out loud here, is what do you do with the timing though? So like, when do you start getting excited though about the next one, right? Because you can't get too excited too soon, right? And so there's always that thing that you called it threading the needle, but like, you know, is it when the home is on the market? Or is it when you've got a buyer actually in escrow? Or is it when you got a buyer and they've removed contingencies? Or do you have to wait to get excited all the way? You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you play that when, of course, the big goal is to get the next house that they actually want?
You know, again, I just go back to what I stated before, is that you got to have your house ready to rock, you know, and if it's not already listed on the MLS, then, you know, it's got to be totally dialed in and ready to go. So, you know, I'll go back and just reiterate that you got to make sure that the house is dialed in, ready to list before you really start getting excited about another property.
Got it. So what I'm hearing you kind of just say is that that's sort of the embedded answer is there's so much you can't control, you know, when you're going to get excited, when that house is going to come along. So really keep it really simple and stupid, right? Which is easy for me, right? And just say, hey, your minimum effective dosage is to say, boom, get your house in order, get it ready to rock. Whether it's on the market or not at that point is almost kind of inconsequential. It's just, that's what the the would-be buyer who has to sell first has to do, and then let the rest take care of itself.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Dave, anything else? Jer, anything else on your end? I'm complete on the real estate side. That was my only take I wanted to share.
What's coming up for me is in hearing us talk about this process, we're kind of focusing on maybe the situations that are a little more urgent. And I think those are definitely worth our attention, because we do run into people who tend to put the cart before the horse a lot. And I know Jared mentioned wanting to talk about, some of the phone calls that we get from buyers who are already in escrow. But I would say even before that, there's that fine line that you talked about, which is where we got to figure out, the seller has to figure out, okay, I'm buying my next house with the proceeds from this house. I need to get pre-approved, and I need to get pre-approved long before I start the home search, just like they need to get the house ready to sell before they start the home search. That's 1A is get yourself pre-approved as if you've already sold the home, being conservative with your numbers and looking ahead to that next home purchase. But you don't even start that home search until you know what your numbers look like. Because Jared, you mentioned one of, all the phone calls we get throughout the year. I don't know how many times it happens, but it happens too often with those buyers calling us up saying, I'm in escrow.
Yeah. It's a great point, Dave. And maybe to drive that home just a little bit, what is kind of invisible, and we haven't been saying it probably because we do this every day, and but for the potential seller buyer right now that is watching this video, we can use presumptuous numbers. So Dave and I can put a pre-approval together for you that is based on a predicted sales price with a predicted net revenue and maybe some other assets that you have. We can fill in all those variables, almost like Mad Libs. You got these little blank spaces, and we can put it in and say, if you get this, if you walk with this, here's what you can afford, right? And here's what your payment will be. The same thing you did when you bought your first home. We're doing the same thing, except substitute down payment for net proceeds from sale, right? And we can plug that stuff in, and we can say, hey, if you get this, here's what you can afford. Hey, if you get this, here's what you can afford. And that might drive some of that decision-making that Jesse and Craig were talking about in terms of how do you list your home? Are you working with contingencies? Are you going for top dollar? Does that get you all the way to where you want to be? And the only way to know that is to do the numbers in advance. And the truth is, it takes some work. So you want to sit down, you want to have a conversation about it. It's not, here's my FICO score, what's your rate? It's, let's talk about my goals. Let's put this all laid out, and let's get a strategic plan in place so that I have variable A through variable G covered. And I know that if any of those things happen, I know exactly what the outcome will be. We can do that. And it's really powerful, especially when it comes to your negotiation, because if we arm you with those details, then let's say we're out there, you're in the car with Craig or Jesse, and you find that place, and you can approach that real estate agent and say, you know exactly what needs to happen to score that house at the price you want with the payment you want. It's so powerful to be pre-approved like that and just have that data. So I love what you're saying, Dave. I think it's vital, and shopping for a loan after your home is on the market is too late, quite frankly.
Yeah, certainly those calls we get from people who are already in escrow on that next property are just a killer.
Yeah.
You know, I'm closing in 3 weeks. Can you help me get a loan? It's like, oh, right. Brutal.
And one thing I'll chime in with from the real estate side of things is that, you know, if you guys, you know, anybody out there that's looking to do this, you know, I have to say, you're probably not going to, you know, glean every bit of information from this little video that we're putting together here. But, you know, I don't think there's anybody better positioned than the Greenhouse Group for a shameless plug here to really unpack all that for you guys and sit down and explain all this, all the minutia of every different option.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, and we'll call this in summary here, a couple things. And Craig, to the spirit of your point, we'll draw from that first. The reality is that to sell and then buy in any one of these iterations that we mentioned, it's a lot. And it's a lot technically, it's a lot logistically. And I think the thing that it's mostly a lot of is emotionally. So what you might have heard, if you kind of squinted your eyes and, kind of pan back a little bit, the wisdom of everything wasn't to technically follow this, like we joked, chronologically, word by step. It's the gist is start early and start with somebody who, can handle and navigate this crazy space. Get all your ducks lined up in a row, both on the real estate side and on the number side. And when you do that, at least you're giving yourself the fighting chance to have the rest go well. Because, gang, would you all agree? It can be batshit crazy just to do a real estate deal, let alone trying to do two at the exact same time. The integrated complexity is through the roof. And so it's, the big takeaway, the aha that you guys are all giving me right now, and I hope it's getting conveyed across, is start earlier than you even thought you might have. And don't do it. Don't start and go at it alone, right? Like I'm thinking about the house prep stuff, Craig. Like how many times does somebody raise their hand and they say, hey, I've been getting my house ready for sale and I've already found another one that I like. And you just want to hug them. Like it's coming from such a good spot that they were trying to do everything they could on their own, right? Like all blue collary, And then the truth is, man, if they just would have met with us and done a room by room review on the house, we could have saved them thousands of dollars on stuff that they never should have done. We could have repositioned that stuff and the stuff that they should have done, because it's not always the same, right? The stuff that you would do to make your house really cool isn't necessarily the stuff that buyers want you to do to get top dollar. And then, of course, the same is true with the financing and the budget on the next leg.
Yeah. Well said. Said well.
Well, I guess by the stare backs, then I guess we call it that we're good and we're complete here. So, gang, if anybody else has anything to say, cool, keep it to yourself. And thanks for checking in. We'll hope to keep these series alive. So give us any feedback you might have. And if you're looking to start this process for yourself, well, there's a couple cats over at the Green team that love to start that conversation with you. So until then.
Cheers.